A little bit about what's going to happen today. I'll give you a bit in about myself. I'll share with you my journey and my career path. We'll talk about Nike and a deep dive of what I do on a daily and some of the skills that are needed to work at Nike. And then I'm going to switch it a little bit into talking about something that's really helped me in my career path, especially now. And it's called Ikigai. And then we'll end on some takeaways. Hopefully that sounds good. All right. So about me, I guess you could say that I have kind of a picture, a postcard picture perfect type of where I'm from, if you will. So I was born in Japan and but adopted and grew up in Hawaii. So those two places definitely provided my foundation and my roots. The picture you see in the middle is a picture of my parents and my brother. And I grew up playing sports in Hawaii throughout my entire life, and I was very fortunate to be able to, as Terry mentioned, get a D1 scholarship to play at Fresno State. So that's a picture there. It's how sport was able to help me continue my education and play a role there. From there, I spent time 6 years living in Japan, and I've traveled to almost 20 countries. I love traveling. I'm all about the adventure. Um, and then I also love to be able to learn and experience new cultures. As I mentioned, I'm also a wife and a mother. So you see a picture of my family and our dog Hana there on the bottom right. In terms of my career path, it shouldn't technically be on a straight line because I feel like it's taking me all over the place. But for the sake of the presentation, I'll keep it on a straight line for you. So after going to Fresno State, I majored in business management and with a minor in Japanese. And after I finished my degree, I knew that I wasn't going to pursue professional softball, but I was always curious, and I was always curious about Japan because I was born there. And so I knew about this program called the JET program. And basically what that is a Japan exchange teaching program. So right after graduating, I moved to Japan, and I was basically international ambassador of the United States, and particularly Hawaii. And I was placed in this small little surf town in Kamogawa, which is in Chiba Prefecture, which is about an hour and a half from Tokyo. And there I actually taught English at 6 elementary schools and three junior high schools. And it was really a super fun experience because after I would finish teaching, I would go and play sports with the kids afterwards. And you'll hear about how that ties into how I got into Nike in a little bit. But basically, teachers, mad shout out to you guys because the skills that I learned from being a teacher were definitely how to think on your feet. So flexibility, because you never are able to fully execute the lesson plan as predicted, because students, you have to be able to read the audience and be able to understand and be flexible on your feet of whether or not they're into the lesson or not, and then how you can change and adapt so that make sure that you're engaging correctly with them. It was definitely a cultural awareness moment for me, like being in a small surf town where hardly anyone spoke English. I remember going to the store and like just not even knowing how to find milk. It was finding milk in the store was a task in itself, and holding up my hand with the money and just giving it to the person at the register to take the money because I had no idea. So that was a big cultural awareness opportunity for me. And then also teaching, you definitely learn how to command the room and how to read your audience and be able to present to them. After teaching for 3 years, I moved to Tokyo, and I actually worked at a law firm as an international client liaison. So Matsuo and Kosugi is a small Japanese law firm with a lot of international clients. So from there, I was able to, basically my job was to manage the relationships between the lawyers, the Japanese lawyers, and our foreign clients. And what that helped me in terms of a skill set was work on professionalism, because you have to be able to understand the different cultures and people that you're working with. They have definitely different business types, business etiquette, if you will, as in addition to communication. So both written and oral, especially from a legal standpoint, written is very important. So that was a really big learning experience for me of how to type really proper emails. And then I touched on this a little bit too, but the international business side, from there, when I worked at that small firm, I actually ended up traveling to places like London and Israel, and LA from Japan, and just being able to go to different places around the world and work with clients from all over. So that was really a fun job for me. But I knew that I didn't want to be a lawyer. No offense to those who are studying law and interested in going into law, but I knew that in my heart, I didn't want to be a lawyer. I knew that I wanted to work in sport. And so in order for me to do that, I knew that I had to expand my network. And I knew that I had to, in order to shift gears of where I was currently in my career at that point, I needed to go back to be able to be in the right place in the right time, if you will. So I applied at the University of Oregon to go to their MBA program. Oregon's MBA program is a little unique in that they're one of the few places in the country that offers sports marketing. So for me, knowing that I wanted to work in sport, specifically Major League Baseball, I applied there, and it's my only option in terms of MBA with a sports marketing emphasis, and I got in. When, as you know, as a student, it's never easy to go in and be able, especially now in the virtual setting, but with the MBA program in particular, for me, it was, I learned a lot about enterprise thinking. So how do you think about taking your past experiences and being able to be in a setting and to learn about what other companies are doing and their best practices to be able to apply it in real life situations. So you're always doing group work and group projects. When I was also in school, I did a lot of side things as well to kind of help supplement the time, as well as to gain the right experience, knowing that I wanted to go in marketing in sport. I was trying to get the relevant experience there. So I worked for the Oregon athletic department. I did social media analytics for them. Basically, like trying to find, back then, was trying to understand out of all the content that was going out, what was working best and what performed the best, to be able to continue creating that same content. So really using data and the science piece to manage the art piece. So did some work there. And then I also understood and learned the power of networking. Holy monkey, like networking is so important when you're in grad school, especially anytime you're going from transitioning into the workplace. So everyone, as you know, will eventually finish school and look to have a job. Networking is definitely one way that you can connect with people, and then also be able to find ways and ins into companies, and to be able to learn more and then hopefully get a job there. So power of networking was really important thing that I learned at school. During my summer, between the first and second year of grad school, I actually landed, like, my dream job was working at the Mets. So I worked in the communications and community relations team. I grew up playing baseball first before softball, and Mike Piazza was always one of my favorite players. And to be able to walk into Citi Field every day as a job and be able to, after my office hours, be able to watch baseball, that was the dream. And I loved that job. It was very interesting, though, to be able to recognize, and the thing that I took away from my experience at the Mets was like passion versus profession. I was super passionate about baseball, love the sport, love the game, love the players, but able to almost turn down the fan side in me, and to be able to understand as a business how they're making money and what are the ways that I can contribute, and what everyone was working on as to be able to make that team really function and sing and make sure all the operations was working. That was a big learning experience for me. I will share a funny story of like how that I really had to practice that. I was like sitting at my desk just like this, and all of a sudden I hear this really deep voice behind me, and I like turn around, and it was Darryl Strawberry. I don't know if everyone knows who Darryl Strawberry is, but he's definitely Google him after this if you don't know. But I just like remember just going like this because I was so shocked and like in awe of Darryl Strawberry, and I was like trying not to have a fangirl moment, and I was just trying to keep calm and just be professional. So that funny story around like passion versus profession. Also, like in the Mets, I learned a lot about, that was my really first deep dive into marketing. I did some, of course, with Oregon in terms of the social media, but I got to manage a Twitter account from the Mets for a little bit. So that was pretty exciting. But creativity came through when trying to find ways to like excite people around. Like I remember going onto the city and placing tickets and then trying to tweet at people to make sure they found the tickets and etc. So really finding unique ways to connect to consumers and get them excited to want to come to the stadium and watch a baseball game. The third skill from the Mets was about community relations. Obviously, each team is placed within a city. It really struck home, and it was really an eye-opener for me of how involved each professional team is within their community. Now, of course, if you think about it, like those that are people that are going to the games are fans, and fans live in and around, for the most part, in and around that team, and that's what part of their livelihood and part of the what they love. And so it's really, really awesome to see how an organization really took that into consideration and gave back to the community, and that was really something that I thought was really special, and to be able to find ways that a sports team can interact and engage with the community and make that community better, because the team is part of that community as well. After graduating, I was super blessed to end up with my second dream job, which was working at the World Baseball Classic in 2013. And so basically the World Baseball Classic is like the Olympics for baseball. It's put on by the Major League Baseball, and they have teams from all over the world participating in this competition to be number one in the world, basically, for baseball. My job there was an assistant venue press chief, which sounds very proper, but basically what I did was work on gathering all the stats, working on creating the press releases, and helping with the translations across the different countries, news teams. So that's where the international sports and the PR piece came into play from an experience standpoint. And also the event management piece, to be able to work at two venues where the semifinals and the finals were in Japan was pretty incredible to see how they managed those games, managed those events, and managed to get the word out to the local cities to be able to drive traffic and purchasers of tickets to people to come out and watch baseball. So that was really a cool experience. And then in terms of career after that, I'll talk about how I got into Nike. And what you see here is all of the different roles that I've had at Nike thus far. I've been at Nike for 7.5 years. I joined in June of 2013. So super happy of how long I've been there, but I'm also pretty shocked at how quickly time has passed as well. Okay. So how did I get into Nike? As I mentioned, like when I went to Oregon, I went in with the intent to work in Major League Baseball. I'm not going to be shy about that. I knew I wanted to work in baseball. However, one of my sports products teacher was a 27-year Nike veteran. And she said, as I was doing some social media work for her project, she was like, you should think about Nike. And I was like, okay, I'm listening. Tell me more. She was like, you'd be a great fit for the company. You have international experience. You're bilingual. You're passionate. You're smart. I know what you can, and I know what you can do. And so she was like, I'd just like you to consider it, and I want you to meet somebody. I was like, okay. And me going into it, like my experience with Nike was basically, I just knew I loved the brand, but I had no idea what happened in the back scenes of how Nike worked at all. So I met with her contact. He eventually connected me with someone who was a business director of football, baseball, and athletic training. And we connected. This guy, his name was Lauren. He actually created Ken Griffey Jr. product. So, and a former catcher. So huge baseball fan. He worked in product, was really sharp and higher up in the company. And every time that I would meet him, I would ask him for any projects. And if there's anything that I could do. And so the first thing he said was, hey, I'd like for you to analyze our headwear opportunity. And I'm like, okay. So I go back and I connected with the first person that my teacher had connected me with, who was in merchandising, got some stats there, and then really did a SWOT analysis and a competitor analysis, inclusive of that SWOT analysis, and then brought in some insights of how headwear was being worn in Japan. And I made the proposal back of like, hey, you really have to think about it as a head to toe proposition. So with Nike, usually it's feet up of like what you're wearing on your feet and then upwards, but really making sure that headwear is always included in the assortment, because of the business opportunity. Like, I think what headwear at that time had the largest profit margin out of any product at the company. So huge opportunity there. And I shared that back with him, and he was like, okay. And I was like, well, do you have any other projects for me? And he's like, well, I'm glad you asked. And he literally slid across the table a CAD, or a computer aided design, of the Vapor 360 fielding glove, which is what you're looking at on the screen now. And basically he said, this is what we're doing in Nike baseball right now. And I just went, yes, this is why I want. Now I did a 180 after having worked at the Mets and working at the World Baseball Classic. I knew that was how I was going to create impact in the sport that I loved, was through product innovation. And so basically I went back home and I researched, is this glove even legal? So what this glove is basically the first time to have a synthetic leather and a regular leather fielding glove. It's a hybrid between those two materials. For those who play baseball or softball, your glove is super important to how you perform on field. And usually to shape it right, it takes a while, maybe a month or more, to get that right fit and the right shape for you, specific to your hand. What was unique about this glove is that it was ready right out of the box, because of the things that were inside the glove. You could actually form it coming straight out of the box. And the insight all stemmed from athlete insight. So it was Shane Victorino, who is a fellow Hawaii person, Maui boy, as well as Carlos Gonzalez, who was an outfielder for the Colorado Rockies. Basically, Shane had told the product designer, hey, we run 3 to 5 miles in a game, and you don't see track stars running on the track with a 2-pound baton, right? So think about a glove that way. It was heavy for them who are tracking down balls in the outfield. Then you have Carlos Gonzalez, who's from Venezuela and a huge Cristiano Ronaldo and soccer fan. And he said, he held up the Mercurio soccer boot and said, make my glove like this. And then that's how the insights informed the glove creation of the Vapor 360. And that to me blew my mind. And I researched, is this glove even legal on field? Because it's so different and game changing. So I looked it up if it was going to be able to go on field at MLB, NCAA, Little League, high school, et cetera, and I created this report. And basically, Lauren looked at me. He was like, when I presented it, he said, I don't even think our product teams thought of this, to think of that. So then was the big switch for him, was okay, what do you want to do at Nike? And I was just like, oh shit. I remember my teacher just saying, just say you want to work in product. I heard her voice in my ear, just say you want to work in product. So I said, okay, I want to work in product. And he said, okay, great. Because I think out of everyone on this entire Nike campus, you understand the Japanese consumer the best, because of those 3 years I spent in the countryside playing with those kids and teaching them English, to then understanding and speaking Japanese at a business level, profession level, because of that, my experience at the law firm, to understanding how to work with different cultures, as well as you have MLB experience with working with the Mets in the World Baseball Classic, to also understanding that you have your MBA degree and I know what you can do. And I just know that you're super passionate, because basically, guys, I was traveling from Eugene to Nike about 2 to 3 times a week, just driving up and trying to get in front of people, and especially with Lauren and sharing these presentations with him. So it was a lot of hustling. He's like, I know you're passionate. I'd like for you to be the Japan product line manager for baseball cleats. And I just was like, okay. So my first job at Nike was actually creating baseball shoes, which was in itself was exciting and really was exciting and definitely a learning experience. So I got to work in product first, to then moving into brand, where I got to manage and bring to life the Vapor 360 fielding glove, as well as relaunch Nike Baseball, leading with Mike Trout in the Vapor collection that you see in the upper right. From there, I got to manage the brand at a global level, then moved into North America as a baseball and lacrosse brand manager. And then in 2016, I moved into running, which is one of the biggest business units of Nike, especially when you're looking at North America, which drives a lot of the business for the company. So What you see on screen is a hodgepodge of some of the projects that I've worked on and led, whether that's from the 4% launch, which was a game-changing shoe that helped marathon runners and all runners basically be able to run faster, to working on Nike Cross Nationals, which is serving 13 to 15,000 high school runners every year and providing them with a national team competition for cross country, to working and launching on the Epic React and Infinity Run footwear, and working with influencers like Brett Rock, who you see in the middle, to then creating content around how to just help athletes be better. And that's what you see with the Tips and Stride work. And then lastly, into some purpose marketing work where my idea of painting a track a rainbow color that you see there. So that's actually live in LA, to now our current vote work that I'm working on in North America with You Can't Stop Our Voice. So basically, this is just a quick visual of all the things that I've done at Nike. But now, I guess what will be really helpful for you guys is just to understand what the heck does that mean in terms of the things that I do on a daily from a brand marketing perspective. So I'm sure you've heard this before, but anytime that you hear about Nike in the news, or if you hear someone speak, we always say this, which is listen to the voice of the athlete. As marketers, it's super, super important. Number one thing that you need to take away, and if there's anything that you take away from this, when you are in marketing, you have to understand your consumer. And so when we say listen to the voice of the athlete, you have to be able to be passionate about trying to learn as much as possible about them. So kind of like going back to when I was teaching or presenting, you have to always be able to know your audience and to who you're serving, and that's what this is all about. So listen to the voice of the athlete. So regardless of what business unit you are in, or which category or where you work at, it's always important to understand that you are serving a consumer. So at Nike, we're also all about team. You probably heard we're a matrix organization. Matrix just meaning just very like complex, right? I try to boil it down specific to what happens from a brand standpoint. Some people say brand is a spoke of the wheel. I personally, I have a dog, so I like to say brand is the person trying to walk 10 different dogs trying to get from A to B. But basically what that boils down to is brand is basically the center point around how everything comes to life. So for example, anything that you see about Nike running in North America, whether that's on social media, on Nike.com, to what's on what are runners running in North America, to what you see in store, that all comes through our team because we manage the brand of Nike running, for example. So what that means is we provide the vision and strategy for all of our teammates that you see around us in those circles. So we work very closely with experts within each function. So digital brands, so those that are what happens on .com and our apps, social media, communications, which is all around like PR, basically, and the news releases and how we see stories with media, to then like media, which is from a paid perspective. So a lot of thought and partnership goes into how the content that you see ends up on sponsored posts, for example, or how you see things end up on TV. So that's from the media team. To brand design. Brand design is a team that creates all of the beautiful assets that you see, or the pictures that you see around Nike, both from a product perspective and the athlete perspective, as well as a storytelling, beautiful film pieces as well. So that's brand design. Retail marketing, anything that you see in stores, both Nike as well as our partners like Foot Locker, Finish Line, Dick's Sporting Goods, etc. Sports marketing, so making sure the athletes are wearing the right product when they're competing. So brand is helping drive the product marketing, and then it ends up on the feet of the athletes. So then you really have this nice connection there. So people are seeing what you're talking about, and it's being validated by athletes, as well as influencers, where the influencer marketing team comes into play. So people, when you see collaborations with like Travis Scott or Billie Eilish, or et cetera, it's no coincidence that they are wearing some of the newest and hottest product from Nike as well. So it's all working together with our teams to make sure that the right time and the cadence, we are being able to get our message out around the product in play. Now, outside of that circle, we also have teammates that aren't specifically in the brand function, but we work very closely with. So some examples of those are like obviously the product teams, the ones that are actually making the product. We work very closely with to understand what they're doing and how do we message to the consumer around that product. We work very closely with government affairs, biz affairs, and legal to make sure that everything we are doing is safe, because of course, not only are we stewards of the brand, we are also protectors of the brand, right? So we have to make sure that we're considering from an enterprise, are we putting something out into the world that we won't get sued on, for example. And then the last one, these finance, definitely we always have to work within a budget. So that's just kind of a visual of who we work with on the daily as we're trying to create content and trying to make sure that we're serving our consumers. The skills. All right, so obviously you've seen how we work together. First and foremost, if you want a job at Nike, you have to be good at working on a team. That doesn't mean now you have to be an extrovert, introverts, whatever type of person you are, that is totally fine. But you do have to be able to work well with people. And I say that doesn't mean, that just means that you have to be, because you can never do your job just by yourself. You're always working with someone, and you always have a teammate or a partner that you have to collaborate on, so that the work that you're doing does in fact impact them, and vice versa. So teamwork is very important. As marketers, creativity is very important. And that doesn't mean like you have to come up with these big ideas all the time. Creativity just means that you can, you're willing to be open to things and to find a solution, right? So finding a solution, because every day we're trying to solve problems for consumers, how to make things easier, how to remove barriers, how do we get it in front of them at the right place? You're always trying to find the right ways and balancing that art and that science of marketing to be, and you end up being creative. So that's what I mean by creativity. Hustle and passion, I would say they kind of go hand in hand with each other. Hustle and passion, like, it doesn't mean you have to be a go-getter necessarily to work at Nike, but you do have to have the passion and the willingness to hustle to bring that to life so that you can serve the consumer. And again, at the bottom, they just hit on is definitely all of that is based off of their commitment to serve consumers. Again, listening to the voice of the athlete. Okay, now that was a deep dive on Nike and my career path. And so now I kind of want to switch gears a little bit into talking about how did I always know that I was going to work at Nike? No. Do I regret any part of my journey or experience? No, because it definitely helped me get to where I am today. Knowing that this is October and it is the month of Halloween, and then it's okay. I wanted to share a personal video of my son, because it's a good reflection of sometimes we feel like we're going through life and you know kind of where you want to go. Like he has to get to the house to go ask for candy, but he gets distracted by a bush. And so like, you know, for you, sometimes like for me, like you feel like you know where you want to go, but there's things that pop up, right? So for me, this really like hit home and how I continue to stay centered and balanced. And this is called Ikigai. Ikigai is basically a Japanese concept that means a reason for being. And it looks at the things that you love, to what the world needs, to what you can be paid for, and to what you're good at. And then within those, the Venn diagram, you can see how it aligns to like your passion, your mission, your profession, and your vocation, right? So the things that you can study and the things that you can end up becoming and getting the skill set for, which is your vocation. So it's trying to balance all of those things. And personally, like throughout my career, there are times when I fell within certain buckets, and then definitely we're feeling some of the things that you see on the side, like satisfaction but uselessness, or delight but no wealth, you know, or excitement but uncertainty, or even just feeling like you're comfortable and cruising in what you're doing, but there's something that you're looking for that just feels empty. So Ikigai is really an exercise about trying to consider everything that really matters to you, so that you can find your balance and that you can be excited to work and to go to work every day, or wake up in the morning and get after your day, really. So for me, my why, like, as you know, I have a son. So my why is like, I love to share and inspire and lead with positivity and hope. And my mission is to create a better landscape for the next generation, specifically for my son. I want to create a better landscape for him. And I'm going to do that through sport. So I really through the years, and again, it's ever evolving, right? So this wouldn't be what it is today if I didn't have my son, and it wouldn't have been if I didn't go and teach, or if I didn't go and work at a law firm, etc. It's always going to change, which is totally fine and normal. I think what I'm just trying to say is, like, you just take the time to reflect on what drives you, what really is important to you, and to really keep that in mind as you consider what you want to go into, who you want to work for, and what you want to be, and your impact that you create on the world. So sharing from a personal perspective, for me, like, I love sports, right? And for you can throw the MLB job up there in one of the buckets in terms of like how that combine my passion and my mission to then what the world needs. Personally, like, we need more leaders and teachers. And so I think that aligns with like your mission and vocation to then what I can be paid for. I went to school for business management, and I went to school and I ended up getting experience in marketing. And so I think it's definitely, I put that in there, what you can be paid for, and then what you're good at in terms of, for me, I love people and I love talking story. And so storytelling is a big part of me. And so I'm just really blessed and really happy to continue to strive to, now that what I'm doing at Nike, not only from a running perspective, but the purpose marking work from the vote campaign that I'm helping lead, is really like centering all of those things around my reason for being, and how it combines what I'm passionate about and really bringing me balance and excitement to come to work every day. So with that being said, some things of advice, or takeaways, if you will, of just from hearing my story. Number one, follow your heart. Follow your heart, gut, whatever you want to call it. Just know that you know yourself best, and if something feels right to you, and you know that you want to take that chance, for example, on a certain job or a certain person, like, do it. And everyone's journey is going to be different. There is no right career path, and there is no right way, and you are in control of your own path. But while you're doing that, hustle. Like, you create your own luck too. Like, for me, and just speaking out of personal experience, like, hustling was a big part of it. And if you're passionate about what you want, you got to go after it and create your own luck. Nothing's ever going to go the way that it plans. So always make sure that you're considering how you can grow from it and learn from every experience. And through that, you'll be able to find your why. So always try to come back to what drives you and what's your purpose. And I ask that you just try the Ikigai experience for yourself to really help you look at where you want to go in your career as marketers. And that is it. So thank you very much